Welcome back to the C Morning Show, everyone. It is 7:15 in the a.m. and it is time for our first discussion. We have a special talk show for you to kick things off here, where we are celebrating 50 years of diplomatic ties between Australia and ASEAN. Now, this partnership has evolved into a cornerstone of cooperation, fostering mutual growth, security, and cultural understanding between both Australia and Southeast Asia over the past 5 decades.
So today we will explore the evolution of Australia's engagement with ASEAN, the outcomes of the recent Special Summit in Melbourne, and the ambitious strategies shaping the future of this dynamic relationship with Australian Ambassador to ASEAN, Her Excellency Tiffany McDonald. Good morning, Ambassador.
Good morning.
Good morning, Marissa, Paul. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking time to join us this morning.
My pleasure.
Before we get into our discussion, prior to your appointment here in Jakarta as the ambassador to Australia and ASEAN, you've actually had family ties in regards to Indonesia. In fact, not only was your husband appointed, but in his family lineage as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about your family background? Prior to you moving here, you had already been here before.
Sure, thank you. You're right. Indonesia is a really important place for me and my family. 2004 to 2008, I lived in Indonesia with my husband, who was posted here. He's a diplomat as well, and we arrived with a 1-year-old, and then we had our second, our daughter, when we lived here.
She was born
She was born in...
So we were born while we lived here. So my 2 children spent their formative years here. They left as 5 and 3-year-olds.
Right.
But then my husband had lived here as a young boy too. His father was a diplomat here in the 70s. So we've had this really long and strong connection.
Yeah.
In fact, my husband lived in Indonesia when Australia became the first dialogue partner to ASEAN. So,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
you can see the length of that relationship when you look at the age of my husband.
And now you're here, appointed
that's right.
as well. That's
Yes,
amazing.
indeed. So from the 70s until now, but in 2020, so it has been 50 years. I mean, it has been 50 years, the relationship between Australia and ASEAN. How do you think the relationship has evolved between Australia and ASEAN over the past 50 years? What are the key milestones, do you believe, that have significantly strengthened the relationship between Australia and ASEAN, Ambassador?
Well, the Australia relationship with ASEAN, we're celebrating 50 years of dialogue partnership this year. It was, in 1974, the decision of our then Prime Minister, Gough Whitlam, who recognised then ASEAN was still a young organisation. It had only been established since 1967, only 5 members then. But even then, the Australian government recognised that ASEAN was undoubtedly the most consequential, important regional organisation. So the government took the really important step of becoming a dialogue partner. We were the first dialogue partner. And even today, that really is something that we're incredibly proud of, that we were the first dialogue partner. Subsequent to that, we've been on the journey with ASEAN, the comprehensive strategic partnership that we struck in 2021.
Yes.
I was Australia's High Commissioner, Ambassador to Brunei at the time, and it was during Brunei's chair year. And we took the decision that we wanted to become a comprehensive strategic partner with ASEAN. We were one of the first, and it was achieved during Brunei's chair year. That was a really important step in our relationship, because it meant that not only were we a comprehensive strategic partner in name, but we really wanted to make sure that we were a comprehensive strategic partner in the actions that we did. So it unlocked a whole range of new resources to dedicate to the relationship between Australia and ASEAN. Throughout that 50-year journey, we have been there. We were one of the first members of the ASEAN Regional Forum when ASEAN's established the East Asia Summit. It celebrates its 20th anniversary next year. We were one of the first members of that. So every step of the way, we have been there with ASEAN, really supporting the incredibly important role that ASEAN plays in the region, but also making sure that Australia's partnership with ASEAN is continuing to grow and go from strength to strength.
Well, it's been a very fruitful and obviously productive last 50 years, but how does Australia envision its role in the future in the region, especially in regards to peace and stability, because we know that's such a big issue these days.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. Australia, we had to commemorate the 50-year partnership, we had the ASEAN leaders come to Australia in March this year for the ASEAN Australia Special Summit. And it was really a remarkable opportunity to have the ASEAN leaders meet with Australia's leader, Prime Minister Albanese, and the whole range of ministers that were engaged, including Australia's Foreign Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Trade Minister. We had a huge amount of activity to commemorate the relationship. That summit looked at how the relationship had travelled over the last 50 years, but it was really important that we had discussions at leader level about how the relationship would track over the next 50 years and beyond. So it was an opportunity for leaders to agree what we call the vision statement, which really articulated how we wanted the relationship to evolve over the next 50 years. And then we also had the Melbourne Declaration, which was an opportunity for leaders to exchange their shared views on the whole range of issues affecting the region. The key part of our engagement with ASEAN is respecting ASEAN centrality and emphasising Australia's commitment to how important we see the role of ASEAN in the region. A stable, prosperous ASEAN is fundamental to Australia's interests. So all of our efforts with ASEAN member states and through the ASEAN organisation really designed to support the critical role, the central role that ASEAN plays to peace and stability in the region.
Yes, and did the summit include agreements or projects that directly impact Indonesia?
Yes, well, everything that we do through the ASEAN programs applies to all ASEAN member states. So we have, of course, such a strong relationship with Indonesia through our bilateral mission here. I know you've had Ambassador Penny on the show before, and Indonesia and Australia are celebrating 75 years of diplomatic relations this year. But everything that we do through our ASEAN programs is deliberately designed to be ASEAN-led. So what that means is that I will sit around a table with all of my ASEAN counterparts, including Indonesia, and we will talk about what are the priorities that ASEAN member states have for the relationship with ASEAN, and then that guides where we direct our resources. We have very substantial development cooperation program. We have a huge amount of people-to-people links, the political links. So all of that is really committed to being ASEAN-led and ASEAN-driven. But you asked about Indonesia in particular. Of course, it has a very special place in our engagements with ASEAN. It is, since July this year, has become our country coordinator, and that's a really important role where everything that we are doing with ASEAN, we will work with Indonesia as our country coordinator to help our efforts and support our efforts to deliver to the priorities the shared priorities that we agree.
Nice. Clearly, there are, earlier in the summit that you mentioned, there were commitments that were made throughout the summit from different countries around ASEAN. How does Australia ensure that those commitments that were made translate into actual tangible benefits, not just for ASEAN, but for Australia as well?
Yeah. Then that was a key part of when we were negotiating for a comprehensive strategic partnership. That was absolutely the lens through which we negotiated that agreement. Was we said we want this to be not just a label, we want it to be substantial, and we want to be able to deliver tangible outcomes. So one of the things that we did is this year we negotiated it's called the Plan of Action, and it is the guiding document that sets out the priorities that we will have under the comprehensive strategic partnership. It's 18 pages.
Oh, wow.
It's a really comprehensive document about our comprehensive strategic partnership. But what it does is it captures the elements that the ASEAN member states have said that they want us to prioritise in our relationship. And then every year we'll have meetings to track and discuss how we're going to make sure those priorities are still fit for purpose, and also to remain accountable so that we can demonstrate that what we've said we're going to do, we are doing.
Sure.
Yeah, and something tangible as well is the ASEAN Australia Center that was newly established. So what initiatives will be prioritized to boost ties between ASEAN and Australia? And tell us a little bit more about this ASEAN Australia Center, Ambassador.
So the ASEAN Australia Center was one of the announcements made by leaders at the Melbourne Summit. It came into operation on the 1st of July this year. And then I had the privilege of having the Secretary General, Dr. Kao Kim Horn of ASEAN in Australia at the end of November. And we were able to officially launch the ASEAN Australia Center with the Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, in Parliament House. The purpose of the centre is really to build cultural, education, business links, people-to-people links between Australia and ASEAN member states. It's at the end of the day, everything that we do is to build the people-to-people links and to build better understanding. And so the ASEAN Australia Centre will really make a significant contribution to supporting our efforts, whether it be through the creative industries. They're setting up, it's called the Bridge Schools Partnership, which connects primary schools or elementary schools in Southeast Asia with Australia. That program actually started here in Indonesia. So there'll be a really strong focus on building those people-to-people links and the understanding between our two countries, between Australia and the ASEAN member states.
Okay. How do you feel this ASEAN, obviously the launch of this ASEAN Australia Center is just the beginning, but you mentioned some of the initiatives that have already been planned. How do you think this will impact the Indonesia, for Indonesia and Australian economic strategy leading to 2040?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in addition to the work that we do through the ASEAN-Australia relationship, the Australian government in Indonesia actually in 2023 during your ASEAN chair year launched the Southeast Asia Economic Strategy, which is a strategy that was commissioned by the Prime Minister to and has a leading Australian business person, Nicholas Moore, look at the relationship, the trade and economic relationship between Australia and ASEAN member states, and really consider and make recommendations on how we can do more. We're already in a good place. ASEAN is Australia's second largest trading partner as a bloc, larger than our trade relationship with the US, Japan, but we know that we can do more. We're really looking to build not only the trade relationship, but investment into the region. So the way that it works is that the Southeast Asia Economic Strategy has made 75 recommendations across 10 priority sectors, and we are working very closely with each of the ASEAN member states that are covered under the Southeast Asia Economic Strategy to deliver for the respective economies. We have a business champion for each of the ASEAN member states. Jennifer Westacott is the business champion for Indonesia. The trade and investment relationship with Indonesia is already good, but we know that we can build, and lots of complementarities. One of the focuses of the Southeast Asia Economic Strategy is agriculture and food, and then one of Australia's largest exports already to Indonesia is wheat. But looking at how we build on the aspirations of food security in Indonesia, that's one way. I think also the digital economy, huge opportunities there. Indonesia has the largest e-commerce in Southeast Asia. So there's a whole range of activities that will happen at a bilateral level. For me, as the ambassador to ASEAN, I'm also leading activities and areas of cooperation that will support the pan-ASEAN, across ASEAN architecture. So if I think of things like the Digital Economic Framework Agreement that ASEANs are negotiating, if I think of the free trade agreements that we already have with ASEAN member states, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the ASEAN Australia New Zealand Free Trade Agreement just about to be upgraded again. So these pieces of architecture really help build the trade and investment relationship. We have this turbo boost through the Southeast Asia Economic Strategy, which works both at an ASEAN, across ASEAN level, but also then for each of the bilateral relationships.
Yes, and now we'd like to discuss about the chairmanship as well, because Malaysia is going to be the chairman of this in 2025. What are Australia's main priorities for ASEAN as Malaysia prepares to take over the chairmanship in 2025?
Well, firstly, we're still technically in Laos chair year,
Yes.
so I have to
Yes.
congratulate
Yes.
them for a very successful
Absolutely.
chair year this year in 2024. Laos was our country coordinator up until July this year, so it was under their support as our country coordinator that we became a comprehensive strategic partner, and we agreed the plan of action that I referenced before, and also we had the special summit. So in addition to hosting a very successful chair year, they also did a great deal for the Australia-ASEAN relationship. We're all now looking to 2025 and Malaysia's chair year. Sustainability and inclusivity are the chair year themes for Malaysia, so we'll be working very closely with our Malaysian counterparts to find ways to support their priorities across the chair year theme. It will be quite a significant year for the East Asia Summit, which is the premier leader-led strategic forum, which brings all of the key players in the Indo-Pacific around a table every year, and also has a whole range of other activities: economic, education, environment, energy. It will be celebrating its 20th anniversary, so we'll be looking to work with Malaysia on how we commemorate that. Just on the East Asia Summit, and picking up on your earlier question about the role of ASEAN plays in peace and stability in the region, we really see that the ASEAN-led architecture, including the East Asia Summit, plays a crucial role in bringing leaders and governments together to talk about the issues that are impacting on the region. And we see the very important role that architecture like the East Asia Summit plays to maintaining peace and reducing the risk of misunderstanding or miscalculation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, serious topics, but very important and mechanisms that are showing tangible benefits to reducing the risk of maintaining peace in the region.
And obviously, outside of peace and stability, maritime security, year to year, similar issues have had to be tackled from country to country. For example, since Indonesia's chairmanship, even Laos, and will be Malaysia soon, such as economic recovery, climate change is a big one. Does Australia have any particular focus strategies or plans in order to help ASEAN navigate through some of these other challenges as well?
Absolutely. So we work very closely with ASEAN across the range of issues that are impacting on our region. And the truth is that we're living in a time where the region and the rules that govern the way that we interact in the region are under pressure, and it's increasingly difficult strategic dynamics that are impacting on all of us in the region. So a couple of ways that we do it is that we work with ASEAN's to support the rules, the ASEAN-led rules-based architecture and the rules, norms, the international law as it applies in the region. It's really important for a country like Australia, and also I hear this from my ASEAN member states. We want a region where every country, large or small, is behaving in a manner that's consistent with the rules. We want no country to dominate, but we want no country to be dominated either. And the rules give us that architecture to be able to each progress our interests. So we work very closely with ASEAN to support that. We're also picking up on climate change. The renewable transition in ASEAN, in our region, is a huge opportunity. There's great risks if we don't work together to address it. But one of the things we did is worked with the ASEAN member states to develop the carbon neutrality strategy. We're working also on digital transformation, all these transboundary issues that require more than domestic settings to help us address them. There's a whole range of activities that Australia is working on to support ASEAN's efforts in that regard.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and you served in Brunei when the country held the ASEAN chairmanship, Ambassador, and now you are here as the Australian ambassador to ASEAN in Jakarta. What unique perspectives have you gained about the role of ASEAN in global diplomacy?
It's a great question. So yeah, I did have the opportunity to be the High Commissioner in in Brunei during its chair year. It was also during COVID. which you know
Wow.
it feels like a long time ago now, but
Yes.
it wasn't so long ago then. So we were able during that year, obviously addressing the disruption that had been caused by the pandemic, whether it was food security or vaccines, getting vaccines out into the region. They were the types of things that I worked on during that chair year, is securing the comprehensive strategic partnership. Again, now being in this role, it gives me another unique perspective because I get to see across the 10 ASEAN member states and also the newest member to come, Timor-Leste.
Yeah.
Get to see the role that is being played by those countries in relation to the strategic dynamics and the global situation. I think the other important point to make here is that even though our focus is very much on regional stability and looking at what happens in the Indo-Pacific, nothing is disconnected.
Yes.
So we saw that with the global pandemic. We've seen that with the range of conflicts that are happening outside of the region, it's still having an impact here. So ASEAN plays a really important role, not only in maintaining peace and stability in the region, but also working together on how we respond together to the impacts of those issues that are taking place beyond the Indo-Pacific.
So it's funny that you should mention COVID because that's the one thing that made me personally realize how interconnected we all really are. Anything that happens in one country, especially our neighboring countries, really impacts us all.
I think that's right. And then also the solutions, the shared solutions.
Yes.
Yes.
Being able to work together to find vaccines was a good example.
That's
Australia worked with the ASEAN member states to provide vaccines to all ASEAN member states during that time. We couldn't do that by ourselves. We couldn't respond to that challenge without working together. And ASEAN plays such a central role in our response to any issue facing the region.
So glad we can leave COVID behind us now, and let us now look ahead. Looking forward, how do you see relations between Australia and ASEAN going forward, not just on a regional level like we've been discussing, but an actual people-to-people level?
Yeah, and that's the point, right? It's the people-to-people links that make the relationships.
Right.
And so the role that I have as the Australian ambassador to ASEAN, I really see a crucial part of that role is how do we build the people-to-people links, because that builds the shared understanding between our respective countries. So we have this, one of our major development cooperation programs is called Oz for ASEAN Futures Initiative. It's the signature program for our comprehensive strategic partnership. Through that, we look to build the people-to-people links, whether it be through scholarships, whether it be through capacity building. We're doing fellowships. We had at the ASEAN Australia Special Summit over 130 new scholarships announced. We had the first cohort of those scholars go down to Australia. They're primarily master's students looking at areas that attach to the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. So that's a perfect example of how you translate what is a policy, ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, a policy or a strategic outlook, into tangible action. You do it through the people.
Yes.
So the education links, I think there's more than 200,000 alumni in Jakarta alone, in Indonesia alone, sorry.
Yes.
We also have in Australia such strong people-to-people links with Southeast Asia. More than 1 million Australians of our 25 million claim Southeast Asian ancestry. So there's already a huge body of people that connect our countries together, but working through the ASEAN-led mechanisms, scholarships, fellowships, finding ways to do capacity building for government-to-government engagements, all of those things. That's the thing that will really drive our relationship into the future and build a shared understanding.
Yes.
Education, that's a perfect example.
Absolutely, and I have to make a little disclosure here. I'm an Australian alumni
There you go.
as well, and there's been a people-to-people connection definitely between me as an Indonesian and my fellow Australian friends, because I've been also involved in the FSAI, which is the Festival Cinema Australia Indonesia. it's been going on for since 2016, and we've been working very closely in creating that understanding between Australians and Indonesians through films, actually.
Sure. Yeah,
it's amazing.
there's another creative industry that can connect us.
Exactly. And Ambassador, circling back to the beginning, because you have a very close connection to Indonesia from way back when. So what's your favorite memory or experience about Indonesia, and how has your understanding of the country evolved over the years?
So it's really amazing to be back here 20 years after I was here in 2004, 2008. And I knew that the country had changed. I knew that you see the statistics about the rapid economic development and how strong the Indonesian economy, the growth in the Indonesian economy has been. But to come back here and see the infrastructure development, I still see the figments of my past life here. I've been back to the house that I lived in, and I worked in the Australian Embassy on Rasuna Sayed, so I can see that. But then the MRT, the LRT, the infrastructure, the rising, the prosperity is really tangible. You can see it. Yes, and that's only 20 years. So I'm really excited about what happens in the next 20 years and beyond. I really loved my time in Indonesia the first time. I think the people. There's an Indonesian word, cocok.
Compatible.
I don't know if there's it's compatible, right? I think the people from Indonesia and Australia are really cocok, and the sense of humor and the friendliness. I loved. When I was here last time, I had 2 little children who are now young adults, so we'll be able to do more travel this time. But when we were here last time, we travelled across Java to Yogyakarta, where I'd spent 8 months when I first arrived. The scenery, the history, amazing. I went to Lombongan Island, some of the best sunsets you'll ever see in the world there. So the sheer beauty of the country and the vast nature of the country too. Those are the things that are sort of the enduring memories for me. I'm so delighted to be back here in this role as the Australian ambassador to ASEAN, because I get to live in Indonesia again, and as we mentioned, it has such a special place in my family's hearts. But I also get to travel to all the ASEAN member states.
Yes.
So I've spent a large part of this. Yes, exactly. But also it gives you a sense of the diversity too, because ASEAN's really are far from a homogenous collection of countries. So I've been really privileged to be able to travel to most of the ASEAN member states this year, to get to know the people, the culture, to work closely in delivering the Australian government and ASEAN priorities, shared priorities. But it's been a wonderful opportunity, and I'm really pleased to have had that opportunity, and look forward to taking the relationship forward over the next couple of years.
Well, ASEAN's very lucky to have you as well.
Yes.
I mean, us having traveled to several other ASEAN countries as well, we feel the same way too. We feel, wow, it's so different when you go to different countries in regards to the food, the culture, the languages, but we all have this kind of similarities about us as well, and I love making these connections. And I, like you, Ambassador, I was here in the early 2000s, and many people ask, what made you stay in Indonesia for so long? And I always say, it's that change that you mentioned, the evolution. Despite having lived here the entire time, I've even noticed how much it's changed. So I guess that goes to show how much we've evolved, not just Indonesia, but all the other countries in ASEAN as well. And we hope that it continues as well to have a good relationship with Australia over the next 50 years and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, and wishing you all the best for the remainder of the year.
Likewise.
Look forward to watching you again in 2025.
Absolutely. Drop by our
and
studio
enjoying a visit to Australia.
Send a book for me.
You
That's
need
right.
to go.
I've got little ones that I've got to bring, because apparently it's very family friendly.
It is?
Now's the time to go.
Australians visit Indonesia more than any other country since 2023. So we look forward to welcoming some of you to Australia too.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you so much.
All right, we're going to take another short break here on the C Morning Show, but we have more stories for you when we return. Stay with us here on the C Today News Network. We'll be right back.